Welcome to Cozy English Corner. I'm Alex, and today we are looking at a subtle but highly important part of the English language. I have Clara joining me today.
Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. I just managed to escape the rain over on Route 315, so I am very glad to be in the studio.
That unpredictable Ohio weather is definitely setting in. The gray skies of Columbus always make these studio sessions feel much cozier.
They really do. As a history teacher here, I tell my students that our weather changes as fast as historical eras. And speaking of timelines, the topic we are discussing today is all about how we view the past.
Exactly. We are focusing on two phrases that sound very similar but communicate entirely different realities. I was doing and I did.
The difference between the past continuous and the simple past. It seems like a minor grammar rule, but it actually completely changes how people understand your stories.
I want to talk about the real pain here. Many adult English learners stay awake at night worrying about their communication at work. They worry they sound unreliable because they cannot explain a timeline of events properly.
That is a very real fear. Imagine you're in an HR meeting or even explaining a minor car accident to the police. If your tenses are confused, your entire story becomes confusing to the listener.
So, how do we distinguish them fundamentally? What is the core difference between I did and I was doing?
It comes down to completion versus process. I did is the simple past. It describes an action that is completely finished. The door is closed.
And I was doing is the past continuous. It means the action was happening during a specific moment in the past. It was ongoing.
Yes, if I say I went to the store, the trip is over. But if I say I was going to the store, I place the listener right in the middle of my journey.
That is a powerful way to frame it. You are literally placing a listener inside the timeline. Let us talk about simple past in more detail. When do we use I did?
You use it when you can mentally draw a box around the event. I ate lunch at noon. I watched a movie yesterday. The start and end points are firmly in the past.
So, definite completed actions. What about past continuous? When do we use I was doing?
You use past continuous when you want to emphasize that something was in progress at a specific moment. It is not about completion. It is about the process itself.
For example, I was working when you called. I did not finish working at that exact second. I was right in the middle of it when the phone rang.
Exactly. The action was interrupted. And there is a fascinating psychological element to this, Alex. Have you ever heard of the Zeigarnik effect?
I am familiar with the concept, but please, explain it for our listeners. How does it relate to our grammar topic?
In psychology, the Zeigarnik effect states that people remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. Our brains hold on to things that are in progress.
That makes complete sense. When we use the past continuous, I was doing, we are signaling to the listener's brain that there is an unresolved situation or a specific background context.
Yes, it builds tension in storytelling. If I say, I walked down High Street, it is just a fact. But if I say, I was walking down High Street, you immediately expect something else to happen.
That is the perfect transition into how these tenses work together. Past continuous sets the scene, and simple past describes the event that interrupts that scene.
Right. I was cooking when the fire alarm went off. The cooking was the ongoing process, and the alarm was the sudden, completed interruption.
This pattern is incredibly common in standard English. It is how we naturally explain everyday situations, especially when making excuses or explaining delays.
Relatable, local context. Think about our traffic on game days here in Columbus. You might tell your boss, I was driving on 315 when the traffic completely stopped. It explains your context perfectly.
And notice the question changes the tense you should use. If someone asks, what were you doing at 3 p.m.? They're asking for the ongoing process.
Exactly. You reply, I was working. But if they ask, what did you do yesterday? They want the summary of completed actions. You would say, I worked And I finished my project.
Let us discuss the structure briefly so our listeners have the mechanical foundation. Simple past is the subject plus the verb in the past tense, like I worked or she called.
And past continuous is the past tense of the verb to be, so was or were, plus the verb in its ing form. I was working. They were arriving.
A major mistake learners make here is mismatching the be verb with the subject. I often hear sentences like, they was doing the project.
Yes, that is a very common error. It must be, they were doing the project. You have to remember, I was, he was, she was, it was. But we were, you were, they were.
I want to touch on the emotional context of these tenses. This is where fluency really shows. I worked all day feels neutral, like checking a box.
But I was working all day carries weight. It implies fatigue or perhaps frustration. It emphasizes the duration and the effort spent.
Exactly. If a friend asks why I did not answer their text, saying I worked sounds a bit dismissive. Saying I was working sounds like a valid reason because it shows I was occupied.
That nuance is so important for building relationships in a new language. You want to show politeness and provide proper context, not just state cold facts.
Let us talk about multiple actions happening at the same time. This often happens in busy environments.
In those cases, you use past continuous for simultaneous actions. For example, while I was cooking, my brother was cleaning, and my sister was studying. They are all happening parallel to each other.
I noticed that if you make a mistake here and use the simple past, it completely distorts the timeline. Saying, I worked when you called, sounds like you waited for the call and then started working.
Yes, that creates a huge misunderstanding. It makes the call sound like a trigger for your action rather than an interruption. This is why mastering this difference is so crucial.
Let us do some comprehensive practice for our listeners. I will present a scenario, and Clara, you provide the correct answer. Blank space. She blanked the book yesterday and loved it. Read or was reading?
Read. She read the book yesterday and loved it. It is a completed action that she has already formed an opinion on.
Correct. Next scenario. While we blank dinner, the lights went out. Were eating or ate?
We're eating. While we were eating dinner, the lights went out. The dinner was an ongoing process interrupted by the power failure.
And finally, he blank 3 presentations last week. Gave or was giving?
Gave. He gave 3 presentations last week. These are distinct, completed events, tallied up at the end of the week.
Perfect. You can clearly hear the logic behind each choice. Now, what about negative forms? The rules must stay consistent.
They do. For the simple past negative, we use did not. I did not work yesterday. For the past continuous, we use was not or were not. I was not working when you called.
The subtlety is still there. I did not finish my work means the task remains incomplete today. I was not finishing my work when you called simply means at that exact moment, finishing was not happening.
Exactly. One is a statement about completion, and the other is a statement about what occupied your time at a specific second.
To bring this all together, let us create a realistic story. I want to show our listeners how native speakers naturally weave these tenses together to paint a picture.
I can share a story from yesterday. I was preparing my lesson plans when the school principal called with new requirements. I did my best to adapt quickly, but I was stressed the whole time.
Let us break that down. Was preparing sets the scene, the past continuous. Called is the simple past interruption.
And did my best is the action I took to resolve it, simple past. Finally, was stressed uses the past continuous to describe my emotional state during the process.
That is a flawless demonstration. It creates a full, realistic picture. If you only use simple past, it would sound like a robotic list. I prepared, the principal called, I adapted, I stressed.
It loses all its human element. That is why understanding this distinction is a matter of fluency. It allows you to speak with nuance and rhythm.
I want to advise our listeners to start paying closer attention to the tenses in the content they consume. When you watch a movie or read a book, notice how the author switches between them.
Your ear will naturally learn the patterns if you remain actively aware. It is just like noticing architectural details in a city. Once you see them, you cannot ignore them.
That is a great analogy. To build that active awareness, I suggest our listeners write their own short paragraph today. Describe what you were doing when a sudden event interrupted you.
Active creation is the best way to internalize grammar. Do not just memorize rules. Connect the language to your own memories and experiences.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with a very quick mental check. If you are ever unsure which tense to use, ask yourself one question.
Was this action in progress, or was it completed? That single question solves the problem almost every time.
In progress means past continuous. Completed means simple past. It is simple but incredibly effective.
It has been wonderful breaking this down with you, Alex. I hope it gives everyone a bit more confidence when telling their stories.
Thank you, Clara. Your perspective on timelines and narrative really brought the concepts to life. To our listeners, thank you for learning with Cozy English Corner. Mastering these forms takes patience, but it will transform your English precision. Keep practicing, stay curious, and we will see you in the next episode.